Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, former South African President Jacob Zuma has his day in court, but not the one many may have expected. He attends a hearing to fight an arrest order issued for him last week over his refusal to cooperate in a corruption probe. Also, young people in northwestern Nigeria risk becoming a lost generation as more schools are shut because of the rise in kidnappings of pupils in the region. And the Poto Poto School, one of Africa's top creative institutions, encourages pupils and prospective buyers to head to an online gallery to keep the creativity flowing despite the restrictions of the pandemic. But first, former South African President Jacob Zuma has launched a two-pronged attack on an arrest order issued against him. Last week, the 76-year-old was sentenced to 15 months in jail for contempt of court after he refused to cooperate with a corruption investigation. He was given until Sunday to hand himself in, but for now remains a free man, as police wait for the outcome of his legal challenges. On Tuesday, the High Court heard his application to halt the arrest order. A verdict isn't due on that until Friday. He's also asked the Constitutional Court to reverse its original decision. The case has fueled tensions within the ruling ANC party. Sam Bradpeace joins us now with more. Sam, so Zuma is trying to take this arrest order down on two fronts. How did Tuesday's efforts go?
Yeah, well, Tuesday's hearing were all done virtually because here in South Africa, we're currently in level 4 lockdown COVID restrictions. So it all happened virtually today. Mr. Zuma's legal team essentially arguing to the High Court in Pietermaritzburg that the sentence itself was unconstitutional. They say Jacob Zuma, the former president, wasn't given time to kind of adequately respond or give any kind of defense of himself in advance of that sentence being passed down. Of course, critics might look at this and say, actually, Mr. Zuma had plenty of chances to defend himself to the Constitutional Court and, more importantly, in fact, to the Zondo Commission. That's the corruption inquiry, which is looking into alleged corruption during his presidency. So, yeah, this is prong one, if you like, of his attempt to kind of get out of jail free or avoid going to jail in the first place, I should say. Prong two, as you mentioned, is this hearing at the Constitutional Court. Now, that's the highest court in South Africa, which will take place on July the 12th. And there he's going for a slightly different objective. What he's trying to do is have the sentence rescinded altogether. So right now, what he's trying to do is suspend the arrest. And then afterwards, he's going to try and get rid of the charges, get rid of the sentence altogether.
Now, police initially took a very firm stance, saying that they were determined to arrest Zuma, whatever his status, after Sunday's deadline passed. That clearly did not happen. How has this wait-and-see approach from the police gone down with Zuma's critics?
Well, let's start out with the lawyer representing the Zondo Commission at the hearing virtually today. He said that it was really nonsensical that the police weren't arresting Zuma by this point. You know, the police, as you mentioned, have been flip-flopping. Last week, they said it was sure that they would arrest Zuma if he didn't hand himself over to the police. They're now saying that they won't arrest Zuma. So until this litigation is finished. And now, importantly as well, the judge who was presiding, I should say, over the hearing today, he outlined himself that actually the High Court doesn't have any jurisdiction in this matter, meaning that even if it rules in favor of Zuma, which is looking quite unlikely, even if they did, they are superseded essentially by the Constitutional Court. So what happens in the High Court doesn't really matter an awful lot. But final thing I'm going to tell you, Georgia, the lawyer representing Mr. Zuma, he warned of another, essentially of a Marikana, which was a reference to the worst massacre in post-apartheid South Africa. So he's essentially warning of civil unrest should this High Court sentence Zuma. Of course, that would be big news were it to come to fruition.
Thanks very much. Sam Bradpeace there for us in Cape Town. Now, Zuma was forced out in 2018. The fact that he's today subject to an arrest warrant has shocked many South Africans. During his time in office, he was called the Teflon president by some for his continual evasion of attempts to bring him down. Now, one of the most well-known voices in highlighting some of the murky accusations against Zuma was political cartoonist Zapiro. He's been sued twice by the former president over his work.
Above the chic hustle and bustle of Camps Bay in Cape Town, an artist's studio is nestled in the hills. It's here that we find Zapiro, now in his 60s, still hard at work. He began his career during South Africa's apartheid era and quickly built a reputation for lampooning those in power. One of Zapiro's most famous pieces dates back to 2008. At the time, allies of Jacob Zuma were trying to get the then president off corruption charges.
It is a shocking, shocking image of Zuma unbuckling his belt, and it looks like a gang rape scene about to happen. That's what it was meant to do, but this is very much metaphorical, the justice system about to be raped.
Zuma attempted to sue Zapiro over the drawing, but dropped the charges. Over the course of his career, Zapiro has gone after hundreds of public figures and tries to follow one simple rule.
You want to help and support the underdog, the underprivileged, the poor, people who are suffering from inequality around the world. You want to punch up against the corporations, against the politicians, against sometimes religious demagogues, anyone who impinges on people's human rights and who doesn't have the best interests of the broader society at heart. Of course, it's very subjective. I'm making decisions in the same way as any thinking reader is making decisions as to who represents their good ethics and who doesn't.
At July's Cartooning for Peace exhibition, Zapiro will exhibit a number of works like these, shocking, entertaining and thought-provoking commentaries on the COVID-19 pandemic.
An escalation of kidnappings of students in northwestern Nigeria is devastating young people's education there. All schools further away than a half-hour drive from security posts have been closed in Kaduna State after the latest mass abduction saw 150 pupils at a secondary school taken. The UN reckons that at least 1,125 schools in total have been shut across the northwest because of the crisis. Around 1,000 students and staff have been taken since December. Samuel Okoya with more.
The government has warned the owners of these schools that if they don't close down the schools, they will face sanctions. This is an indication that the government prefers to close down these schools rather than protect them. Governor El-Rufai of Kaduna State recently withdrew his children from schools, citing security concerns. There is a joke in town that if the governor can withdraw his children, it shows the governor cannot even protect his children. So parents should not rely on the governor to protect their children. It looks a very helpless situation, not only in Kaduna State, but across northern Nigeria, where we have seen series of kidnappings happening. The closure of schools does not address the problem of insecurity confronting these schools. The abduction of children and the resultant closure of schools is a big blow to education in Nigeria. Thousands of school children are out of school as a result of threats from kidnappers. The fate of the children in this recent incident is unclear, as the gunmen have not made contact with the parents or with the school. President Muhammadu Buhari has in the meantime ordered security agencies to rescue these children. But as we have seen in the past, rescue hardly happens. Rather, the gunmen will release these children after their parents have paid ransom. Hundreds of abducted school children are in captivity today because their parents are unable to pay ransom. 136 children abducted in Niger State as far back as May are still being held captive. About 60 children abducted last month in Kebbi State are also being held captive.
Samuel Okoye there for us. Now, tensions between Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan have risen as Addis Ababa began the second phase of the filling of its mega dam on the Nile. Cairo and Khartoum are furious after having been officially notified this week. The countries have unsuccessfully been trying to thrash out a deal over terms for filling the hydropower dam. It will be Africa's biggest, and Ethiopia is banking on it for its development plans. Meanwhile, Sudan and Egypt fear losing access to the Nile's waters. The UN called on all nations involved to recommit to talks, and the Security Council is due to discuss the matter later this week. Finally, one of Africa's most famous art schools is turning to online galleries to keep its classes creative. The Poto Poto School in Brazaville has struggled to sell or display the work of its artists because of the pandemic. But the school's director is encouraging virtual visits for both prospective buyers and eager pupils looking for inspiration. Take a look.
The Poto Poto Art School was founded in Brazaville in 1951 by Frenchman Pierre Laude. Today it's one of the most respected institutions on the continent. Sylvestre Mangwanza teaches art here.
Nous avons leur donné l'engouement pour donner certaines valeurs. Parce que les gens avaient toujours tendance de penser à la vente. Or, d'abord, c'est la conception et le savoir-faire. La vente, ce sera bien après.
Rabi is 18 and has been studying here for the last 7 months.
Avant, en fait, mes dessins étaient basés juste sur les Disney Channel, les mangas. Et là, depuis un certain moment, j'ai envie de faire plus que ça, montrer la culture congolaise, quoi. Parce qu'avant, ce que je faisais, c'était pas ma culture. Là, j'ai envie de montrer ma culture.
The pandemic has hurt Congo's economy and sales of paintings have plummeted. But the school's director might have a solution.
Les artistes ne vendent plus comme avant. Alors, pour remédier à cette situation, nous avons soumis un projet à l'UNESCO pour pouvoir installer une galerie virtuelle pour permettre aux artistes de vendre en ligne.
Selling paintings to foreigners on internet could help the 70-year-old institution survive this economic crisis.
Well, that is, though, all we have time for Eye in Africa. Thanks for joining us, and do so again. Take care.